Hello again. I'm sure that all viewers will have heard of the need for more and more immigrants to care for Britain's ageing population. Who will look after all those old folk? Why, immigrants, of course. Who will pick the fruit, harvest the crops, and run the railways? After all, with so many British people shuffling around on Zimmer frames, we will need active and healthy young people to do those things. I know. Let's import more immigrants. There is, of course, a flaw in this reasoning, although it is considered rather indelicate to speak of it. This is that the whole thing is no more than a gigantic Ponzi scheme, which works for a while before plunging everybody involved into poverty and ruin. Perhaps a few words might not come amiss first about the nature of Ponzi schemes, of which most people have heard, but many have only a hazy idea how they work. Ponzi schemes are named after an American con artist in the 1920s called Charles Ponzi. The system is simplicity itself and still very popular. You will often see invitations to invest in cryptocurrency on the internet, which are no more than modern versions of this racket. First, you advertise for people to invest their money, promising them fantastic returns, far greater than those available elsewhere. Once you've got a few people to send you money, you promise that they will receive their first dividends or interest payments in a short while, say 3 or 6 months' time. By then, you will have drawn in other mugs, and you use this new money to pay the dividends to the earlier investors, whose money you have by now squandered on sports cars or yachts or something. Some of these people are so pleased that they will then invest more money, and you can use this to pay the supposed dividends of the next batch of investors. After a while, you will have embezzled or frittered away all the capital invested in your company, and you are wholly reliant upon finding new mugs who will allow you to allay suspicion by continuing to pay dividends on capital which no longer exists. As long as you can keep finding new investors, all will be well. But the problem comes when somebody wants their initial investment back just at the same time that you have run out of new people who will send you their money to invest. At this point, the best bet is to leave the country before the fraud squad come knocking on the door. This, then, is what the immigration system in Britain is like. We are told that we need some immigrants to work in this or that field, which is desperately short of manpower. Of course, if the business, whether it is agriculture or care homes, then flourishes and expands, then you will need to import more immigrants to help cope with the increased demands. In hospitals and care homes, we are told that we need to bring foreigners into the country to care for all those old and ill white folk. The obvious part of this which is being ignored is, of course, that immigrants will also get old and ill themselves, and that those immigrants whom you have brought in to pick fruit, drive trains or work in hospitals will then need places themselves in hospitals and care homes. This is a problem. I know. We'll invite in some more immigrants to care for all those immigrants who are now old and infirm, in need of hospital treatment and no longer able to work. And so, just like a Ponzi scheme, this system will only work as long as you can lay your hands on an ever-increasing number of punters. The problem is, of course, that just as with the Ponzi scheme, you will run out of capital. While we are bringing people in to run trains or bring in the harvest, the National Health Service is buckling under the strain of the extra 500,000 people coming each year to live, work and study in this country. As the years pass, the ageing population will consist of ever greater numbers of those immigrants whom you brought in originally to plug the gaps. There will come a point when the numbers of people will exceed the ability of the NHS to cope with their needs, and I don't think I need to tell viewers that this point is coming perilously close now. This is because no matter how many care workers and nurses you bring in, the number of hospitals and doctors is not rising nearly fast enough to keep pace with all those millions of new patients. You are spending all your capital just on paying for agency staff to cover this or that emergency, and so there's nothing left of your capital in the end to use for building new hospitals. Just like somebody running a Ponzi scheme, all the money is going on paying interest to persuade people that everything is kosher and they don't need to worry. The crash is coming soon enough, though, as any ordinary person who uses the NHS realises very well. This Ponzi scheme is about to fail in the most spectacular way imaginable, and when it does, access to a doctor, or indeed any kind of medical treatment, will be literally impossible. Maybe not this year, perhaps not the next, but certainly soon, there will be a reckoning every bit as painful as when any other kind of Ponzi scheme goes bust.